Yes, what's going on, peeps? We are back in the building, guys. As always, make sure you're smashing the like, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. So, listen, we're back here because this week it looks like the Premier League spending is going to start hotting up. Now, I know certain fans of certain fan bases, they're not really too happy with their team's deals at this current moment in time. They're wondering why we're not making certain deals, etc., etc. Now, apparently, this is all because of PSR. Now, as we know, the little that I know about PSR, it seems like quite a few clubs are hitting we're getting close to that limit, i.e. they can't spend as much money as they would like to obviously spend for various different reasons, due to revenue and all of this kind of stuff. So I'm not going to get too into that because, again, I'm not here and I'm not qualified to speak on that. But this week, it does seem like the Premier League spending is going to start ramping up. And here is the reason why. So let's get into it now, and I'll show you guys. So this is obviously the article. This is obviously the Daily Mail. I don't really with a Daily Mail, but you know what, for these kind of things, I'll just kind of just get through it. So it says here why Premier League clubs are ready to spend big on transfers this week, with Man United set for positive conclusion in the race for Brentford's Bryan and Mbeumo, and then obviously just the little subheadings and etc. etc. So here it says the transfer window is set to hot up this week following the arrival of new reporting year under the Premier League's financial rules. Daily Mail understands that a number of clubs have deals on hold until they can register the spend on the 25-26 accounts rather than the 24-25. This year's window has so far been slow-paced with relatively few high-profile moves, aside from Liverpool's £116 million swoop for Florian Wirtz and Manchester United's £62.5 million capture of Wolves' Matheus Cunha. Manchester City have been the most active, with Pep Guardiola undertaking a flurry of activity. Of course, this was ahead of the Club World Cup, which we know we had a separate window kind of, for that, where it was available for all clubs, but it was because of the clubs participating in the Club World Cup. However, the situation is now likely to change, with sides already at the limit on this year's profit and sustainability rules, PSR, hanging fire until Tuesday. Many do not want to fall out of the regulations, which can result in the ultimate sanction of points deduction. So obviously it mentioned that. Meanwhile, sources have disclosed that United's pursuit of Brentford's Bryan and Mbeumo is set to lead to a positive conclusion. United have lodged 2 failed bids for the Cameroonian forward, the last of which was 55 million plus 7.5 in add-ons. It's understood that the Bees believe the 25-year-old is worth more than Cunha, a theory they believe is backed up by statistics. When we obviously scored 20 goals last season, United feel they've offered a fair price, yada, yada, yada. And that's kind of really it. So obviously it's just talking about to kind of summarize it, should I say, all it is that because certain clubs didn't want their money to come out of their account sooner, effectively, they're going to wait. And obviously from Tuesday, the 1st of July, that's when the new financial accounts, would I say, heading into the next season, will obviously come into play. So yeah, there could be quite a lot of deals in the next couple of weeks, to be honest with you, because now clubs feel probably, certain clubs are probably waiting to see who's going to be available. Certain clubs are obviously waiting to see, is now the right time to strike? Is this the perfect time to do it? Will this player still be available? Certain players might be away on international duty, this summer. Some players might potentially be playing in the Club World Cup. So there was obviously quite a lot in and around that. Obviously, we've got, Liverpool with Alexander Isak. Liverpool, as it said there, have already spent 116 million just on Florian Wirtz alone. They've also bought in Jeremy Frimpong and Milos Kerkez as well. So Liverpool have spent quite a bit of money, nearly close to 200 million pounds already. And to be honest, it does look like they've still got quite a bit to do anyway in the transfer market. So maybe Alexander Isak comes into play. Now, we know that Newcastle are very limited in their kind of budget in terms of how much they can actually spend. So is this, and this is obviously one of the questions that keep getting kind of bandied about. And I know it's mostly Liverpool content creators because we want to sign the player. He's a fantastic player. But at this moment in time, I think Newcastle are stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're on one side, you've got everybody saying, you know what, it's better if you sell someone like an Isak, obviously PSR reasons as well. I think they're very limited. I believe it's maybe in and around 100, 125 million. Again, don't quote me on these kind of numbers. Those are the numbers I've just seen banded about. But yeah, it looks like it's between 100 and 125 million. Is that enough for you to be able to bolster your squad heading into a season where you've now got Champions League again? We saw what happened last time you got Champions League. You weren't really able to kind of compete on all fronts, and maintain the levels that you had, obviously had done the previous season. Isak is obviously one of the most important players in the Premier League, let alone at Newcastle. If they sell him, obviously they're going to get well over 100 million pounds. We all know that it's not going to be any less than that. Even if you try to negotiate, I cannot see that ever happening. So you could use that as well as the money that you've already got saved in the bank to then be able to go and sign some players, or you keep him, stick with a limited amount, and then potentially hope that you can do enough in order for you guys to, still be able to compete on the fronts that you want to compete in, next season. And this is where, I guess for Liverpool, when they're looking at it, one, obviously for the financial side of things, but just when you're just looking at it, you're thinking, we can maybe wait this out a little bit. You know what I mean? It depends. Of course, we don't know. Does Isak, obviously he has other suitors. Is he interested in those other clubs? Will that then come into play? We know that Arsenal are looking for a striker. They're obviously still trying to debate between Sesko and Gyökeres. Maybe they're also waiting, to potentially see. You've got even teams who are selling these players, they've also got to potentially wait until then, this financial period of time, because again, this goes onto their book. So if they can again hold off for a few days, and that's all it might actually be, for all I know, in the next week, for example, from Tuesday onwards, up until Sunday, we could just start seeing a flurry of deals, because now teams are thinking, okay, now we've reached, this kind of period. Now we can put this onto next year's books and we don't have to necessarily worry. It's crazy to think now, maybe because I wasn't really tapped in to this last season and over the last couple of years, but it seems like this year, it seems like it's a really big thing in terms of the PSR and stuff like that. Obviously, you got teams like Nottingham Forest who spent quite a lot of money. How close are they? Aston Villa, I know they're relatively close. Again, Newcastle, we know. Chelsea have been able to spin it around in some way, shape, or form. Manchester United, how much money do they realistically, have to spend and things like that? That could actually be a reason. I know quite a few Manchester United fans who are waiting to, get some sales in, because they want to be able to spend more money. Maybe this is the reason as to why they have been, would I say, somewhat waiting. Again, I don't want to give any clubs any excuses, but this just could be another potential reason. So we'd have to wait and see. But I think there's going to be quite a flurry of deals. I think those deals that look like they were close-ish kind of thing, we're going to start seeing those deals just being, completely whacked out. If I'm being totally honest with you, that's what I think anyway, just because it makes the most sense. We know that this season, Club World Cup is obviously currently going on at this moment in time. I saw something the other day from Ben Jacobs, speaking about it, in regards to the Club World Cup and how much money some of these teams, are even making, at this current moment in time is absolutely, ridiculous. And I think one of the things was Chelsea. And I think if Chelsea were to make it, I believe it's if Chelsea were to make it all the way to the final, I'm going to say the final. I can't remember verbatim. I'm going to try and find it for you guys anyway. But if they were to able to make it to the final, then they would be in a fantastic position in terms of the fees that they've already spent on, some of these players. I'm just looking now online because I did see it yesterday. Here we go. There we go. I'll get it up for you guys actually, so you guys can see for yourselves. This won't be a long video, guys. Just wanted to quickly wrap about this. Okay. So this is Ben Jacobs on Twitter. So he says Chelsea have earned close to £40 million so far at the Club World Cup. A further 15 million is at stake if they beat Palmeiras on July the 4th. The tournament could effectively pay for Joao Pedro, who they obviously just signed, or Jamie Gittins, who they've of course as well just signed. And if Chelsea go all the way, it would cover either one of those two players, Joao Pedro or Jamie Gittins, plus Liam Delap. It's Champions League money on offer, but in the space of just 4 weeks. So again, all of these things are coming into play. Again, like I said, we've seen with Manchester City signing all the players that they've obviously signed, during this transfer window and stuff like that. Chelsea again doing the same thing. Again, this was ahead of the Club World Cup. So now that the Club World Cup is here, teams are obviously going to use this as a fantastic way for them to earn some extra money during the summer. Probably more. Again, I don't know how much clubs make, but probably more money than they would make on these tours. And again, remember, they've still got to go on their preseason tours anyway. Do you know what I mean? So they're still going to make a hell of a lot of money doing that regardless. So, in terms of the financial side of things, it's obviously a good thing. But of course, on the flip side, more football and, et cetera, et cetera. But listen, we'll have to wait and see in regards to that. Let me know, what player are you guys hoping your team can sign this week? Get it over and done with. Arsenal, what striker do you want? Do you want Sesko? Do you want Gyökeres? Is it Isak? Is there anybody else? Ekatike, for example. Are Newcastle going to let, someone like Alexander Isak go? If he does, is it only Liverpool who are going to be in for him? Liverpool, do you have a plan B? Do you have a plan C? I'm confident that they do. Who are those plan Bs and who are those plan C's? Manchester United, are they going to get this Bryan Mbeumo deal over the line? And on top of that, who else are they looking to sign? Because, they've got quite a lot of work. Spurs as well, just won the Europa League, into the Champions League next season. What's going to happen with them in regards to player signings and player sales and things like that? There's so many different clubs. What happens with Crystal Palace? Are they going to be in the Europa League next season? Again, all of this has a financial impact on everybody, on top of then worrying about PSR. And I think with PSR especially, listen, the premise behind PSR, I've got no issue with. I just don't think it's really working, at this current moment in time, it's not really working for the majority of clubs, because clubs like Aston Villa have to spend money in order to get themselves to a certain position in order to be able to compete, so that they don't have to later on down the line spend as much money like a Liverpool have done and, stuff like that. But unfortunately, they can't do that, because they need to spend a certain amount to get to this place anyway. Newcastle are obviously going about it in a different kind of way, which is why it works, for them. And Crystal Palace, what happens with them if they have to let players like Eze go, Gay go, and things like that. There's so much kind of going on. So let's wait and see. But as I said before, that's the reason why, if you do start seeing a flurry of transfers in the next, couple of days and things like that, this will obviously be the reason why. But let me know of your thoughts, of course, in the comment section, people, as to what do you want to see from your club? What do you wish they would hurry up and do? Put your club name and the position, and if you've got the player already there, put that in the comment section for me, guys, and I'll catch you later.